You are now listening to 1 Timothy 4:13 Project with the undershepherds of the Cathedral of Praise Philippines, Pastor David E. Sumrall and Sister Beverley Sumrall.
Good evening. Welcome again to Project 1 Timothy chapter 4. I'm Pastor Sumrall, the pastor of the Cathedral of Praise, and thank you again so much for allowing us to sit down and spend this time with you. Tonight, we're going to finish up chapter 18 in the book of John, but first, Sister Bev is going to share with us some encouragement from the book of Psalms.
I'm Sister Bev. Today we're reading from Psalm 65, starting in verse 5. This is a psalm of David, so we can say David said, "You faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds, O God, our Savior. You are the hope of everyone on earth, even those who sail on distant seas." So we see here that David said God answers our prayers with, and it would be so easy for him to say with answers, but he answers our prayers with deeds, with actions. You know, our God is an action God. When you come to him with your prayer request, he answers you with actions, with deeds, with works, with miracles, with all of the ways he works in your life. And then what follows is literally a listing of deeds, because this is how we should pray. We should pray in faith, reminding ourselves, just as we remind God and pray the word, we're reminding ourselves of the great things he has done. So verse 6, you formed the mountains by your power and armed yourself with mighty strength. Verse 7, you quieted the raging oceans with their pounding waves and silenced the shouting of the nations. You know, I like that because the evildoers are noisy crowds. They're noisy people. But God silences that kind of shouting, and instead, we will be shouting the name of the Lord. The name of the Lord will be ringing out on top of all that newfound silence when God silences the shouting of the enemies. But this is a listing of all the deeds he has done. And then in verse 8, those who live at the ends of the earth stand in awe of your wonders. From where the sun rises, in the ESV, you make the going out of the morning and the evening to shout for joy. NLT, from where the sun rises to where it sets, you bring forth songs of joy. You call forth songs of joy in the NIV. You call forth, so from east to west, from the rising of the sun till the setting of the same. In other words, there's no end. Somewhere on this earth, the sun is rising and the sun is setting. It's a never-ending cycle. And from everywhere on earth, he is calling forth songs or shouts of joy. You inspire shouts of joy. You call forth songs of joy. You make songs of joy. Whatever translation you want to look at it, you will find that wherever God is, there's joy, because in his presence is fullness of joy. And from the beginning of your day till the end of your day. So from the east to the west, it's not a position that you can mark on a map, because it's a circle. It goes round and round and round. Wherever you are in the middle of your morning or in the middle of your night, or when you wake up in the night, whenever you are, God will be calling forth from inside of you songs of great joy. Open your spirit to hear those songs. It says, you know, that he surrounds us with songs of deliverance. So if you're lying awake in your bed and you can't sleep, open your heart, open your spirit to hear those songs of joy that he will call forth. If you're going through your day and it's the roughest day you ever had in your life, open your spirit to him. He will call forth songs of joy. In every circumstance, he will call forth songs of joy. And everybody said, amen.
Our passage tonight finishes out John chapter 18, beginning with verse 25. Now remember, where we are in Caiaphas' courtyard. Annas has bound Jesus and sent him now to Caiaphas' house. Verse 25. Meanwhile, Peter was standing by the fire. Now remember, he got there because his friend John the Beloved, who knew the high priest, got the lady at the door to let him into the courtyard. So Peter was standing by the fire, warming himself. They asked him again. This is the second time. You are not one of his disciples, are you? He denied it, saying, No, I'm not. But one of the household slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, Didn't I see you out there in the olive grove with Jesus? Now, I want you to notice we have an angry relative here. Here is a man who had been in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was part of the mob, and it was his relative that Peter took a sword and cut his ear off, and then Jesus healed him and put his ear back on. So this man was very cognizant of who was out there. He was there personally. He said, Didn't I see you out there in the olive grove with Jesus? Again, Peter denied it, and immediately the rooster crowed. Now, I know we always talk about Peter denying Jesus, but I want you to notice each time he denied Jesus, he lied. Now, I know that's a harsh statement of people that like to hear those words today, but Peter not only denied Jesus, he bold-faced lied. As one Chinese man said to me many years ago, he opened wide his eyes and lied. Now, beloved, at some point or another in our lives, you're going to have to realize anytime you're lying, you're headed for trouble. Verse 28. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning. Now, there's actually been two trials. There was the trial. These guys went home and went to bed because they were not allowed to meet at night under Roman law. They came back super early in the morning after Jesus had spent the night in that dungeon. Now, the second trial ends very early in the morning because we know that by 9 o'clock, things are really on the way. Then he was taken to the headquarters of the Roman governor. So he goes now from Caiaphas' house through the city, maybe through the temple courtyards, to Antonia Fortress, on the far side, attached to the temple, but on the far side. His accusers didn't go inside because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate the Passover. Isn't that fascinating? They want a man murdered who's innocent, but they don't want to enter into a Gentile building. Wow. Sometimes religion is actually laughable. So Pilate the governor went out to them and asked, What is your charge against this man? We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal, they retorted. No, here you go. When people are lying and they're covering things up, they use emotions to hide their duplicity. Okay? We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal, they retorted. Be very careful when you ask people an honest question and they respond very emotionally to you. Something is being hidden. Then take him away and judge him by your own law, Pilate told him. Only the Romans are permitted to execute someone, the Jewish leaders replied. So the only reason they're bothering Pilate is they want to kill Jesus. But under Roman law, they're not allowed to kill somebody. But now, isn't it interesting? They stoned Stephen to death. So this whole thing reveals their purpose. They're not here looking for justice. They want Jesus dead. This fulfilled Jesus' predictions about the way he would die. Then Pilate went back into his headquarters and called for Jesus to be brought to him. Now notice, they didn't care that Jesus went into the Gentile building. They just didn't want to go into the Gentile building. Are you king of the Jews? He asked him. Jesus replied, Is that your own question, or did others tell you about me? Now, that's a beautiful leadership principle that you need to learn. Always ask the source of the question. Let me say that again. Always ask the source of the question. Is this your question? Or is this someone's question that they want you to ask for them? Now, it's very important because you need to know people's hearts. And if people are asking other people's questions, you're going to misjudge them. Now, if I can apply that one level deeper, you want to be careful that people don't use you to ask their questions, because then people are going to think you're the one with the attitude or you're the one with the problem. See, by using you to ask their questions, they create negative attitudes toward you. So learn to ask your own questions and not to be the water carrier of people with bad attitudes. Am I a Jew? Pilate retorted. Your own people and their leading priests brought you to me for trial. Why? What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is not of this world. Now, look at what Jesus says. My kingdom is not now an earthly kingdom. One day it will be. But right now, my kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. And he said, if my kingdom were an earthly kingdom, I wouldn't be standing here right now, because my followers would have kept the Jewish leaders from doing this. And my followers would have fought, not to keep me from being handed over to you, but from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. He said, but right now, my kingdom's not of this world. I'm not here right now as a king. I'm here as a suffering servant. So you are a king. Jesus responded, you say I'm a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth will recognize what I say is true. What is truth? Now, the Greek word here, aletheia, literally means what is reality? Pilate asked. Then he went out again to the people and told them, he is not guilty of any crime. So here, Pilate declares Jesus innocent. He said, but you have a custom of asking me to release one prisoner each year at the Passover. Would you like me to release this king of the Jews? But they shouted back, no, not this man. We want Barabbas. Barabbas was a revolutionary. And notice what's going on here. Pilate knows he's being played by the Jewish leaders. So he goes out to the people, because Jesus has been very popular with the people. Pilate is not ignorant of all that has happened this week and the miracles and the healings and everything that happened during that first Holy Week on Temple Mount. He's not ignorant of these things. So he's looking for a way out, and he thinks, yeah, I'll give him to the people. The leaders may hate him, but I'm going to give him back to the people. But what Pilate had not counted on is that these leaders had already manipulated the emotions of the crowds of people out there. They were one step ahead of it. Sometimes you have to learn in life to not just outthink people, but go maybe 10 steps ahead. You know, great chess masters don't think one move. They don't even think 10 moves. They think an entire game ahead. Pilate didn't think far enough ahead to these religious politicians. He thought he had a way out, but he did not. Now, we have a very short passage today, but I want you to remember that even now, Jesus' kingdom is not of this world. It's not an earthly kingdom. Still today, we are still in this age of grace. This world is still not an earthly kingdom. There will come a time in the millennium when Jesus will rule and reign, and his kingdom will be an earthly kingdom. But right now, it was not then, and it is not now. Now, I say that because there's all these crazy doctrines that run around. Used to be one called Kingdom Now. There's a new reformed something that's being taught today. Basically the same thing, where they say, as Christians, we get control of the business and we get control of the governments and we make the world beautiful and then present it back to Jesus. It doesn't work like that. This world is going to go through a great tribulation. This world is going to go through suffering and sorrow. and then the king will return and make all things right. But there will come a day when it is an earthly kingdom. Good night. God bless you. Short passage tonight, but thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow night.
Thank you for joining us today on the 1 Timothy 4:13 project with the under-shepherds of the Cathedral of Praise Philippines, Pastor David E. Sumrall and Sister Beverley Sumrall. Catch their podcasts on all leading podcast platforms and listen through DZBR 531 or tune in online at www.bible.radio. The Cathedral of Praise is a church fully committed to Jesus Christ and His Word. Our main campus is located at 350 Taft Avenue, Metro Manila, Philippines. For a full list of COP campus locations and service schedules, visit us at cathedralofpraisemanila.com.ph. Tune in again tomorrow for another inspiring reading from the New Testament and Psalms.